All right, here we are live for the annual webinar hosted by yours truly, Ray Chubb. I want to welcome everybody to this beautiful live event. This is an act of philanthropy, and I better go ahead and mute myself over here so that I don't interfere with my my webcast here. Now, I have some really exciting guests that's going to be joining us this year. Last year, I actually did a podcast on Empower, and I'll put a link to that. That way you can see last year's. And the year before that, you might remember I had Travis Johnson guest speak on, a keynote speaker. That guy's very experienced, especially in the medical field, and just a wonderful guy. So I want to welcome you back this year, 2026, for another webinar. This year, we're focusing on what does it look like to be a strong man. So again, welcome everybody. I'm genuinely grateful that you chose to spend this time with us. This conversation is for the man who knows he has more inside him, but has struggled to turn that potential into direction. Maybe you're working, but you don't feel free. Maybe you're surviving, but you're not building. Maybe people depend on you, but privately, you're still trying to become someone you can depend on. Today, we're going to talk about creating practical freedom, building real confidence, and developing useful skills in a way we can be a positive example of what a strong man is. And before we get into these ideas, I want to point out that by getting a mentor, it's actually kind of like having a shortcut to what this looks like. Okay. My life has never really followed a simple path. I've built businesses from the ground up. I've experienced wins. I have weathered the uncertainty and setbacks that entrepreneurship brings. And I've spent years hosting podcasts, speaking publicly, writing, working in philanthropy, and helping business owners scale their visions. I also have worked in talent management, helping artists and entertainers recognize their strengths and navigate industries that can be exciting, chaotic, and unforgiving. Those experiences may look unrelated, but they taught me the same lesson. People rarely suffer because they have no potential. They suffer because they lack direction, structure, belief, guidance, or the willingness to act consistently after the excitement disappears. I have spent much of my adult life helping people close that gap. But the work I'm most proud of is seeing someone else take these principles and apply them and build a life that genuinely belongs to them. And that brings me to my friend Andrew. When Andrew and I first connected, I saw somebody with ambition, intelligence, and a desire for more. But he was still determining what that right path looked like for him. Andrew saw something in the way that I approached business and life that connected with him. He began asking questions. And then he asked more questions. What made him different was that he didn't simply enjoy hearing advice, he acted on it. He did not execute everything perfectly, but he stayed coachable, adjusted when things went wrong, and kept applying the principles. Over time, I watched him go from looking for a path to building one. He entered the handyman business, developed useful skills, created financial stability, gained greater control over his time, and became more confident in the value he could provide. So, long overdue, I'm proud to introduce to you, ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Heffley. Welcome to the stage, Andrew.
Hey, Ray. Thanks for letting me be here. I had ambition, but I didn't have a clear map. I knew I wanted more control over my life, but I wanted financial stability. But I also wanted to be present for my family, and I cared about it. I didn't want to just build success in one area. while being absent everywhere else. So I had to learn that wanting a different life and building a different life are two completely different things. The handyman business became the vehicle, but the larger transformation was really learning to trust myself, develop the skills, accept mentorship, which is really fun and kind of off, and follow through.
Yeah, I I recall when you first decided to take on this path, to be your own creator, your own manifester of your destiny, right? And but I don't want to tell your story. I want you to tell. So take us back to the beginning, Andrew, before the business and before the freedom. Who were you, and what inspired that change?
Sure. Well, basically, I was a serial 40 hours a week business and office type of guy. Yeah, if you've ever seen that show, The Office, I've lived
Mhm.
many versions of it. And the cubicles, the computers, the wonderful team building things where it makes you feel like a family, but they run your Monday through Friday and you just live by their clock. You don't get to reorganize too many things at most of the jobs. And there wasn't a lot of freedom per se in it. And so, boy, Schneikes, it completely changed everything when I was now in control of my schedule, in control of my customers. And if my family needed me, then I could actually be there for them. The old way.
That really makes
uh,
a difference.
mm-hmm, sure does.
Now, I remember when I, worked for a corporation, and I really had to live paycheck to paycheck. And then when I actually was able to get on my own, the idea of having to wait for money until I got another paycheck just became a foreign concept. Tell me about that transition. What did that do for you?
Well, the first, the first weeks of me starting up the business, it was such an odd concept that, getting paid per job and same day pay in, most of the situations, as opposed to, okay, I've put in the work, I've put in my week, now I put in another week, and then finally payoff day, payday, and then pay all your bills, pay all your bills, pay all your bills, pay all your bills. What's left, and let's try and pack some away from the account, as opposed to there's time, there's the money. There's the time, there's the money. Now, do I need more time or money? And it was just like, I now had control over this. I need more of this or that. And I could hustle hard and I could definitely save and build a lot more capital when I'm in control of it. And I'm kind of a workaholic once you get me started, and making customers happy just fills me with that light. This kind of business, there's just nothing like it.
Let's touch on that for a second. You mentioned workaholic. For I think it's easy for us guys to say like, "Oh my gosh, I'm in a motive. I'm able to make money." All right, let's just keep making money. Let's make as much money as we possibly can. But and I think that kind of tends to throw some people out of balance when it comes to that work life experience. Am I there for my family? But how am I there for my family? Am I there for them financially, or am I there physically? Like, how do we find that balance? What was that? What did that look like for you?
I guess that's where I gave myself mornings back, where I get to wake up, feed my animals, take care of my dad, kiss my wife in the morning, sometimes make her breakfast, and then make it to my job and be able to have that kind of control. Here, I'm going to go ahead and do a couple jobs. Then in the middle of the day, hey, my wife wants to have lunch. Let me know if I can work that out. Okay, now I can organize that block. It is booked. I don't have availability during that time, but after I can go ahead and keep those appointments. And yeah, just being in charge of your own schedule and moving things back. Hey, things always, have that power and ability to be able to make concerts, make trips. Hey, I'm out of town during this time. Don't worry. I don't have to check with the boss. I know where I need to be. And if I need to be there for a family member, then I'll be there in a jiff. My customer, family first. All right, back to you, Ray.
Through okay?
Now you're coming through okay, partner.
Okay. So I'm not going to say any names, but I believe the person is watching right now. So I remember somebody was observing you and made a comment like, does this person even work? Does Andrew even work? And I said to your friend, I said, well, try to understand that when you make that much money, and you only happen to work 3 or 4 hours a day, it can appear that you may not actually have a job.
And not
But
that
that's really
many vacations.
yeah, but that's really that's the big transformation. That's the freedom that we get. We get to choose, hey, maybe I don't need to work more than 4 hours in a day. Maybe I don't need that extra money. Maybe I need time with my family. I need time with myself, right?
Exactly.
I remember the best.
It's a good way of paying yourself first and putting your priorities straight. Isn't it nice to be able to put your family before your actual work?
Exactly. And I remember the best thing that I ever did for myself was to make myself. I've got a storm here in Florida, so that's why we're having a little bit of interference here. But you'll let me know if we're not doing so well, right? Okay.
Sure.
All right. So it just I'm reminded of a time that I asked myself, how much money do I want to make, right? And the answer was just over enough. I want to be able to make enough money that I can support my family, but not so much money that I'm not there for them, right? And so if I'm giving up time with my family so that I can make more money than I actually need, then it just doesn't compute. It doesn't make sense, take that time with your family, leave the money on the table. What do you think about that?
I can't identify enough with that. Now, I was a young dad at 19. I'm going to take you back a little bit further with this one because I remember back when I was a young father at 19. Then I was a single dad, 23 years old. I was working 3 jobs in order to have a nice house on a decent side of the neighborhood, a car that had a decent paint job and ran well. And from the early morning, 5 a.m., I went to my first job, folding laundry of all things, then heading over to Subway, and then finally getting to my passion job of being a line chef at a from scratch restaurant that I absolutely loved. But by the time that I got home, I was like, oh, Anya, it's wonderful to see you. Give me a hug. All right, let's lay down and then we'll watch a show. Let's do that. And I'd be sitting there just starting to slowly nod off. And I love my daughter. I want to spend as much time playing and running and jumping and taking her to the park, to the mall. If I had a little bit of time, I'd always take the time to focus on her, focus on, feeding her some dinner, watching her favorite movies and shows, and just activities. And from years and years, I was just always trying to make enough money in order to just, basically just to live. I was working to live, and then that little bit of time that I got to spend with her, I wasn't completely present. And I've always been hounding for some way that I could have freedom to be able to raise my kids, be with my family, and not have to work, that 60 plus hours a week. And yeah, key to unlocking freedom. Found it here. Much thanks to you,
Yeah, it
sir.
truly is. And yeah, thank you for that response. So it's kind of, why we're doing this. We want to show people that it truly is possible to forge your own way. And I really believe it's like these days it's through trades. I had to bring my dog Minnie into the picture so because she was barking, and so I would keep her quiet. But I told her she was going to steal the show. But I really want to illustrate to people that it is possible to find your own way in this world, and it is possible to make your own way and to really create a life that is going to satisfy your greatest desires, your greatest needs, right? I used to speak to graduating high school students, and I used to talk to them about the pros and cons of being an entrepreneur, you know. And I said, in the end, I said, listen, for aside from everything that I said to you today, the one thing that I really want to hammer home is instead of deciding what career you want, decide what life you want. What do you want your life to look like, and make career choices based on that. That way, your job can actually fit your lifestyle, right? And I think that's a lot of mistake that people make is that now they've got a job that is interfering with the lifestyle that they actually want.
Yeah, I completely agree there. Just, hearing, I think there was a comedian, maybe it was Jimmy Carr, that was just like, okay, you know what my perfect day would be like? I'd like to wake up, have a cup of coffee, maybe go work for an hour or two, have lunch, have a beer with my mates, and then I'll go back to work when I'm getting ready, have another hour or two of work. Then, I'll go hit the go-karts, really enjoy my day. Then I guess I'll get another couple hours of work, finish somewhere around 5 or 6 hours a day. Then go home to my wonderful wife right after that and spend time with my family. Sounds like a fantasy, but now we've been able to bring life to it. And boy, does it just make you feel alive.
Hey, I want to take a moment to say thank you to people who have been commenting. Looks like we've got some fans out there. Love you. You're a real trooper. That comes from Gerald Helms, and your lovely wife chimed in and says hi. It's great to see she's supporting you in this new adventure of yours. And I want to take a moment to say I'm really proud of my friend Andrew here. He's come a long way.
Thanks,
and it's all due to his great ambition, and yeah, and I mean, having a good mentor helps too. Let's talk about that. What did it mean to you? Now, I mean, I can talk about it too. I mean, let me start with that. I've had 3 mentors. I've had 3 business mentors, and you know what they did for me? They gave me permission to believe in myself. And I think that there's something important about saying, hey, I want to know that I'm good. I want to know that I'm smart, but I don't want to believe that I'm more than I really am. I don't want to present myself as more than I really am. So I want to be careful. And that's where having a mentor, and that's a really good place to be, right? It's better to want to be careful than to just like, hey, I'm happy with overinflating my abilities, right? But having a mentor for me really said like they gave me the authority to believe in myself the way I wanted to. Do you relate to that?
Yeah. It was one of those kind of funny little things where, I've always done that thing where we're supposed to be following our Holy Spirit, that arrow that comes straight from our heart down a path. And I knew that I had abilities. I had worked at shower doors and more. I had been a logger. I'd done so many things in construction, touch base on being an electrician, a plumber. And I was, nicknamed Mr. Fix It by my mom, from a young age, because I just loved tightening and figuring things out. I had all these skills, but I had never thought that I could just apply them all and be qualified to do a ridiculous amount of home fixes. And you made me seriously open up the door to say, hey, you know how to do stuff. Show me how you can do stuff. Here, come along this thing. You're pretty good with tools. All right, you're really good with tools. Hey,
Yeah.
as soon as you gave me that affirmation, I was like, wow, you did give me permission to like show you my skills. Now I'm like believing I can go ahead and execute this not only with you, but oh, dude, you know how to do this. Go ahead and go knock that out. Oh yeah. I guess I can do that. All right, I'll reach out to the customer and go.
Yeah. You want to share? One of my favorite stories was that cast iron waistline. I'm going to set it up and I'll have you knock it down. You called me and asked me, do I know a plumber that could handle this?
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Well, yeah. I called him up and I was just like, yeah, this seems, like you should probably get this taken care of by a plumber. And I think we're still within our wheelhouse on this one because it's an old farmhouse and there was a pipe that needed to be cut and it needed some fittings. And I already had a sweating pipe in my background. And then Ray challenged me to go ahead and practice. And he was like, dude, the worst that can happen is this, this, and this. And this is where I started learning key elements to, all right, I know best case scenario, I can knock it out. But I also need to be okay with worst case scenario, turn the water off, and now you're just gonna have to fix. And,
yeah,
he allowed me that space to do it, and I had great customers that like they recognize my skill level even sometimes when I was like, hey, sure I can do it, and they're like, oh, you can take care of it, you can take care of anything. I'm like, all right, excellent. From my mentor, my customer, now all that's left is to go ahead and step into my confidence in myself, do the thing. And so I did.
Yeah.
I knocked it out. Ooh, that feels good. That is the prettiest sweat pipe that I've seen ever. And as you can see, I turn it off and turn it on. You say the old plumber's blessing, no leaks, no leaks, no leaks. And ta-da, magic.
That's it. And that's that was it. Every time that I encouraged you to believe in yourself, you stepped up and you really pulled it off. And that's really what I want our viewers to hear is that I never believe that people can't. Only you believe you can't, right? So, and the old saying, Henry Ford said, "Whether you believe you can, or you believe you cannot, you are correct." Right. Now we only got a few minutes before we're going to bring Walter Dodd into this. Here we got Walt Dodd. He's standing by for us. But before I introduce him, I want to go ahead and have you tell us one more story about. What was it that you think was the number one piece of advice that you had the hardest time
with? For me?
Yeah.
I would think there's this thing called flyering that I was very, very new to. And I don't think I had practiced this skill since my first sales job selling Cutco when I was 16 or 17 years old. And door to door and putting in a nice little flyer. I was like, okay, we wake up early in the morning. It's crisp and cool outside. We're going to go flyer 500 flyers like it's nothing. We run around, get some exercise. When I'm hanging out with a buddy, it feels great. When I'm going out by myself and I'm like, oh gosh, oh boy, oh no, here's my stack of flyers. Boy, what if somebody has a question and they talk to me? That's the first thing that just I had to push through this uncomfortable, get out of the truck, go up to some stranger's door and put in a flyer. Okay, now try not to run away.
And yeah, even I went through some of that anxiety. It's like, oh man, this is a nice neighborhood. Because of course, it's like when you realize, well, if my customers come from my putting flyers on doors, which by the way, ladies and gentlemen, the best way to build a domestic business is door-to-door flyers. It is a tried and true method. There's a formula to everything. Andrew, is there a formula to everything?
Everything is an equation, and everything uncomfortable just needs to be figured out. That's it. And it's this numbers game that I didn't even want to believe until this guy proved it to me. And then I'm like, what? It just keeps happening and happening. All right. It's an equation. I get it now. That's all it is.
That's it. And you'll remember this. Everything made simple through process and procedure.
Can't argue with that.
Yeah, I mean, guys, ladies and gentlemen, there's nothing you can't do, because if other people are doing it, then there's a way for it to be done. The only challenge for us is to figure out that method, to find out how it is to be done. It is not a matter of whether you can or cannot do it. It's just whether or not you believe you can figure it out, whether you're willing to put your best foot forward. We got a question from the audience here. Andrew, how do you have the energy that you have to do all this stuff? We got 3 minutes before I introduce Walt. So give us that little piece of wisdom.
Sure. From the time that I wake up, my coffee, my apples and peanut butter, a lot of my family knows about it. When you're stepping into your day, knowing your job, you know your customers, and you know your why, then it's this incredible drive where it's not just some mundane job where you're heading there to deal with a bunch of fake customers. You can make them laugh here and there. You can help their situation, but then they're gone and on to the next. It's very, temporary, personal, but actually knowing your customers and being able to help people basically like they're your neighbors and family on a day-to-day basis, it feels like you're stepping into your purpose, and all you get to do is drive to the next person that you get to help. I've got to go help more people. I've helped 5 people today. It feels fantastic. I get nothing but, praise and, oh my gosh, you did so fantastic. And they're not humoring me. I actually do really good work. And I show up on time. I live by some very, very rules that Ray's helped me splay out. And basically I just executed them. And when you feel that good about the work that you do and the time that you go get to spend with your family, boy, doesn't matter how hard I've worked during the daytime. I head home. I'm like, honey, kiss me. I'm going to get a cold shower. Woo. And then next thing you know, I'm hopping into fresh clothes and it feels like I'm on station. Just get to jump right back in with my family. And there is just unlimited energy. It's a great feeling.
Awesome. It really is. I agree with you. Well said. Well explained. Well, here it is. We're bringing in our third speaker. I'm really excited to have him join us. Good buddy of mine, Walt Dodd. And so Walter has a lot of talent, life experience that I believe that can be very beneficial to this conversation, because his background includes sales, leadership, management, training, communication, and the kind of real life responsibility that can't be learned from a textbook. So he brings a valuable perspective on compassion, relationships, accountability, and what strength looks like in everyday life. And ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and give
Thank
a
you,
warm
Ray.
welcome to Walter Dodd to the stage. Hey!
Thank you, Ray. Andrew, thank you for having me both. One of the things, so before I get started, one of the things that I wanted to kind of jump off of was Andrew, you were asked, how do you have the energy? And aside from the coffee, because yes, 100%, I'm going to agree with you there. Your morning definitely got to start with some coffee. But aside from that, you have to find your why. If you don't have your why, then you're not going to have that drive. You're not going to have that motivation. So I love that you said that, because that has got to be part of your everyday hustle, because that's what's going to give you the perseverance to continue. So Ray and I actually met. We met through my cousin Stephen McWithy, better known as Stevie Mac, aka Mr. Daddy. Stephen was an entrepreneur in Las Vegas through Epic Entertainment and Mr. Daddy's Cabaret. He built spaces where people could come together, express themselves, and just feel included. Ray worked with Stephen through his experience in talent management, and the two of them became extremely close. And I do just want to pause for a moment. Stevie Mac, you were always a true legend. You will always be missed. So when I first met Ray, I already knew I knew that my cousin trusted and cared about him deeply. But I'm gonna be honest uh, about my immediate first impression. I remember thinking, this guy is odd, but I love it. Like I do. I truly mean that with the genuine compliment. There's nothing different. There's something different about him. The more I got to know Ray, the more I realized what initially felt odd was it was the fact that he has this field around him where you can feel compassion. He has compassion for people. He carries a lot of genuine concern for others that you can sense before he ever even explains it, and that has become painfully uncommon in the world that we live in today. A lot of people confuse being distant with being strong. They confuse being unaffected with being confident. They act as though caring deeply about other people somehow makes a man weaker. Ray never struck me that way. He can be direct. He can definitely be somebody that pushes you and challenges you. He can sometimes be unconventional, but underneath of it all, you know that he wants the people around him to win. Over time, our conversations moved beyond how we originally met. We talked about leadership, ambition, relationships, responsibility, hardship, and the strange process of trying to become a better man without pretending that you already have everything figured out. Professionally, I've spent a lot of my life in sales, leadership, and management, as well as training. I've helped people build confidence, improve communication, understand complicated information, and perform under pressure. I'm not here to pretend that I have every part of life figured out. I have had periods where I felt stuck. I've questioned my direction. I've carried responsibility for people that I love, and I've learned firsthand that knowing the right answer and actually living it are two completely different things. Uh, Ray brings the experience and the philosophy. Andrew brings a living example of what can happen when someone takes good guidance and executes it. I want to help represent the man listening who may still be kind of stuck somewhere in the middle, the man who knows that he's capable of more, but is trying to identify his next move. I want to help translate some larger ideas so that way they actually look like in business, relationships, and everyday life.
Yeah, and that's really well said, and I really gratitude to you for articulating what you see in Andrew and myself. It's certainly one of those things where it's not always apparent that we're rewarded for being, people who genuinely care about others' well-being. But in the end, I wouldn't want to live any other way because I have a very rich life for it. Now, Walter, one of the things that you and I discussed before this webinar was the difference between masculine strength and control, particularly in the way men treat women. And one of the things that kind of came to my mind earlier today, actually, as I was thinking about this, is being rejected, right? So as a man, I had to learn that if I'm rejected, whether it's by a female or by a job or whatever it is, it doesn't have to spell out that I'm a bad person or that I'm failing as a man, right? Being rejected is something that as a man, I think that we should get comfortable with, that says like we were rejected because it wasn't meant to be, and that's okay. Can you speak on that?
I think that every man fears rejection. I truly believe that a lot of times that's one of the things that often gets misunderstood as far as like their emotions. It's going to their fear of that rejection is going to trigger their emotions and their reactions and how they treat not only the woman in their life, but the women around them, but the people around them. I'm not going to lie. I have been one of those people that has been completely scared of rejection, but you have to learn that over time, it's not about their rejection. It's about what you continue to do and how you continue to push forward. When we talk about modern manhood, we have to talk about how men treat women, because that's one of the places where insecurity is often disguised as masculinity. A man can raise his voice, issue commands, check a woman's phone. He can dictate what she wears, decides who she's allowed to speak with, and call all of that leadership. But at the end of the day, that's not leadership. It's fear trying to wear a masculine costume. Control says, I need to manage your behavior so I can feel secure. Strength says, I know who I am. I know what I value. I will communicate clearly, listen honestly, and make decisions based on what you consistently show me. You have to take the chief of his village. Okay. The chief of his village, he makes decisions based on the wholeness of the village, not just himself. Sometimes he may have to sacrifice some of his land because they need place for food. All right. Just like in the modern relationship, all right, a man doesn't doesn't decide where they're gonna go out to eat based on his favorites. Okay, he's going to take into consideration what he likes. He should take into consideration what his wife likes. Do they have kids? Is it affordable? There's a variety of things. He can't just say, oh, okay, I want to go here. So he has to make decisions based on the entirety of the community, of everybody, of his family.
Completely agreed. I want to hear from Andrew specifically on this as well. Andrew, how long you been married for, and tell us a little bit about your experience on give and take.
On give and take. Well, been married over 5 years now to my wonderful wife, Carly. I've been nothing but inspired. But when it comes to the give and take, as a man in this role, I always want to make sure that I come with great respect for my lady. I need to be able to know that there is give and take, and I allow her to be able to make, good, strong decisions, because I want my lady to have the independence to be able to have her entire character act. She can be recessive in some things where I need to be the man in the relationship. But my gosh, I need to hear her voice. I need to know her view on things. She brings an entirely different perspective that I can't just see that. I'm just logic and sense and nail, hammer, go. But she brings the softer side and the, hey, you need to consider these things, emotions, feelings. And it kind of speaks to the
Yeah.
more feminine side of the relationship. And she entirely expands my view on anything to really bring up in topics.
Yeah. Now, hey, Walter, I want to ask you, thank you for that, Andrew. Walter, let's go back to you. I want to ask you, in your relationship, what does leadership look like with you when your girlfriend disagrees with you?
We are, big on communication. She will kind of sometimes even set me aside and say, let's talk this through. Communication in any relationship, whether it be with your girlfriend, whether it be with your coworkers, communication is the key to human interaction. And if you're not willing to work with others, if you're not willing to compromise, then you're not willing to grow. I've always said, if you're the smartest person in the room, then you need to find a different room. There's a reason that think tanks work. All right. Think tanks work because people are willing to compromise. You have different ideas, you have different strategies that come together to make one fluid decision, to make one fluid standard operating procedure, because that's what's going. You have to look at things from different angles. And something Andrew said had kind of triggered that thought in my head, because if you're not willing to, he said that his wife kind of brings that calmness to him. He's so focused on getting the job done, and sometimes he needs that gentle whisper, say, hey, you're forgetting about this, you're forgetting about this, you're leaving this behind. Let's just woosah and move forward. And it sounds to me like Andrew and his wife really have that commingling of like that communication where they're both able to compromise. It's phenomenal to see.
Yeah, I have to say that my observation of this too is, I say, Andrew, I've been your mentor in business, but you've been my mentor in relationships, because you really, no relationship is perfect, but that's really, I think, what people need to get out of their head, this expectation of perfection. If you're dealing with a human being, you are dealing with the opposite of perfection.
So true.
But that's now, Andrew. Let's ask you a question. Kind of take this back to, how has confidence reduced the temptation of controlling outcomes?
Well, that's the one thing. When it comes to outcomes, I started weighing exactly this: best case scenario, worst case scenario. I have to be okay with both. And best case scenario, it's always going to work out. And with the worst case scenario, that's still a result. At the worst case scenario, is it something that can be fixed, or is it going too far and too deep that I won't be able to reprieve it? And with the confidence of being exactly okay with the skills and ability of everything in my wheelhouse, then yeah, you step right into the confidence side of you. It's incredibly important. And
thank you. Now, Walter, I got one for you. Walter, how would you say how do you distinguish protection from possession? I think you kind of touched on that earlier. You were talking about that, but let's kind of hammer that one home. How do
So
you distinguish protection from possession?
there's a difference between saying, I know what I'm going to tolerate in a relationship, and you have to act this way. You have to do this. You have to act this way, or else I'm not going to be in a relationship. If you can't require a woman to succumb to all of your commands, and then expect her to willingly be a part of that relationship. All right. If she's not in it 100%, if she's not willing to be a part of that relationship, then you're literally just dragging somebody along that doesn't even want to be there. The you should want better for yourself. You should want better for your wife, your girlfriend, those around you. We
Yeah.
are meant to build and support each other, right? Humans are not designed to do everything alone. We are designed to build each other up. We deserve to build each other up. And that's why it's very important when you're in a relationship to build her up as well, instead of pushing her down. You shouldn't have to push a woman down in order to make yourself feel more confident. In order to make yourself feel better, you shouldn't have to make her feel less than. You should want to build her up, so then therefore she's building you up, so then you're building her up higher, and then guess what? You're both on top of the world.
Yeah, I agree with that, and I can tell you, I'm the single guy in this webinar, and so from my perspective, I can tell you about the mistakes that I've made, and what you guys are talking about. You're driving it home. You're hitting the nail on the head. Things that I wish I had learned when I was younger, or earlier, before I made those mistakes. And going back to what I said about Andrew, like I may be his business mentor, but he's my mentor when it comes to relationships. I look up to him, and that's important. It's like we need to. That's part of success and confidence, right? And saying, why should I fear being incorrect? Why should I fear admitting that I was wrong in something? Because I'm confident. I'm confident that I'm a capable person. I'm confident that I'm intelligent, but an intelligent person is someone who sees that there's a lesson in everything. So if I made a mistake, or if I'm in a place that's not by design, meaning that I did not mean to be here, then I have no choice but to fess up. I may not have, made the right choice. Maybe I'm lacking some information. I need to go back into student mentality. I need to learn something. Andrew, talk to me about that process of, what did it, in your memory, like, what was it like to go from the point of saying, like, I'm a young man who knows everything, to saying, like, wow, I really need to, like, go into this student mentality and learn something for my own benefit? What was that like?
Oof, yeah. It's odd switching gears when you're the man of the house. Hey, you're taking care of bills, responsibilities. Kiddo, go brush your teeth. Clean your room. And then, let's see. Back to, here's that last part again. Because I know it was about the responsibility.
Yeah, no,
I just lost train of thought.
We're talking about, like, having the confidence to realize that like, it's okay to be incorrect. It's okay to say, hey, this result is because I didn't know enough. I wasn't wise enough, and I had a result that was opposite of what I was looking for. So what I want you to speak on was, what was it like for you to go from like, I know everything to, dang it, maybe I don't know everything?
Yeah, the student mentality, I fight it because I take age and experience, and I feel like I've got that already. But as soon as I set ego aside and actually just listen to new information, that's exactly where, holy crap, I just stood back and I'm like, wait, no. All right, I'm going to keep listening. Say that one more time because now I'm actually taking it in, not only in my ears, my mind, but I'm taking it into my heart. And I'm like, whoa, all right, this is valuable. I'm going to slow down and I'm going to take in new skills. I'm going to get new perspectives. And yeah, taking on mentorship just absolutely blew my mind. And that's when I started writing things down because I've got to have some grace for myself. I really do, because I so hard on myself. I'm like, why can't I just remember all these good things? So, I would take certain gems that I'd get from Ray and I'd be like, I'm putting this in my Google Keep. I am writing down this gem and I'm going to practice it. And hopefully, kind of like some one of the great scriptures from the Bible, I can be like, hold on, I can use this right now and you need to hear this. This
You
is
know,
so
I that was really one of my favorite things about mentoring Andrew was that this guy would write down like I would say, hey, I got a gem of wisdom for you. And this guy would actually write it down. Or we're having a good conversation and he would start recording the conversation for later. And a year later, he's actually playing it and listening to it. And I'm like, this is a guy who really is invested in his future because he's not letting these gems escape him. Right? If somebody is telling me about a book that I need to read and I don't write it down, chances are I'll never read that book. I'll never remember the name of that book. So if I'm really going to take actions to invest in my future, I'm going to write down when people give me a gem of advice. They give me a good book to read. I'm going to write that down. I'm going to look it up. Walter, what about you? What's your experience with getting good information from people, and how did you handle that?
Like I said, I think that I kind of touched a little bit on this earlier. One of my favorite mindsets is if you are the smartest person in the room, you need to find a different room because you're not going to grow. Right? If you're not willing to take information from others and utilize that to increase your abilities, then you are diminishing you're hindering your ability to grow. You're literally taking yourself and putting a cap on your limit, on your knowledge. So if you're not willing to take that information and utilize it to advance yourself, then you're not doing yourself any favors. And if people are literally willing to share that knowledge and that experience with you, and you're just like, no, I'm good, thank you, I know enough. One of the things that I experience the most is when an agent of mine that I've trained, after they have been on the floor for, sometimes it happens after a couple months. Next thing you know, after a couple years, they're cutting corners here, they're doing that, they're not going to trainings, and then all of a sudden their numbers start dropping because you stopped being willing to absorb information.
Sorry, I had to unmute my mic. um, yes, absorbing information and also reabsorbing information. This brings me to, it sounds like, am I getting feedback here?
Yeah, you're getting feedback.
I got some feedback. Not really sure why. it's really important to understand how we retain information. Andrew, do you remember?
Let's see. Are we talking about the percentages that helps you remember? I'll have to look it up. I think it was we remember 10%. What we just hear. 20% of what we read, and I believe we remember 40% of what we actually teach and can replicate. But correct me if my numbers are a
Very
little
close. And I think, Walter, it was your mic that was giving us the feedback. I went ahead and muted you for a second. Andrew, it's 10%. We retain 10% of what we read. We retain 20% of what we listen to. So if somebody's lecturing us, we can only remember 20% of that information. Now go back to what we're reading. If we're reading, we can only remember 10% of what we read. Now, here's the cool thing. If we can take reading and turn it into an interaction by taking notes, if we can take listening and turn it into an interaction by actually engaging or, again, taking notes, we can turn that into a 50% retention, 50% data retention. Now, here's what's crazy about that. Let's say I'm having an interaction, right? Like we're having an interaction on this webinar. We're discussing this stuff, right? Now, let's say tomorrow we go back, we get back together and we talk about this. And how much of that information are we going to retain on an interaction? 50%. That means that 50% of the things that we talked about is lost, right? And that's just the way the function of our brain. It's just the way it works. Now, here's the benefit to knowing these things, not only in business, but in our personal relationships. If I'm having a conversation with my loved one and the next day they don't remember a lot of it, like, hey, remember when I told you, brother? And they're like, no. I'm like, well, I said it right to you. You weren't listening, right? So now we're treading on dangerous ground because we can make an assumption that's not correct. The benefit of knowing that the only 50% of the information that I give to someone is going to be retained, and that diminishes after, day after day after day. That amount diminishes. So if someone doesn't remember something, how should I react? Oh, let me remind you. There's no reason to be offended. There's no reason to assume that that person doesn't care. You're wasting time. You're wasting energy going into that. Simply understand that the brain cannot hold it all. Just repeat yourself. Be cool. Walter, have you had experiences with that before? Oh, I'm going to unmute you.
So actually,
here you go. Bring it back on.
All right. So actually, I'm glad that you mentioned that because and those numbers are very refreshing. I've never heard it actually put into logistics and numbers like that. But that's one of the reasons. So when I'm hired by a company to do training, right? When they say, hey, I want to bring you in, I want you to train us train them on this, that, so on and so forth. And I'm like, okay. And I come to them with a lesson plan and they're like, okay, well, we're going to trim this here on this day, this there on that day. And then we can just make it one day, right? To kind of cut some costs. And I'm like, it's not that simple. We can do that if you want, but I'm not going to be able to make any guarantees as far as the ability of them to absorb all of that information. It's one of the reasons I break my trainings up when I do with more interaction in between, because if you're not keeping that brain firing on different cylinders, then they're not going to absorb as much information. If you cram 2 days of training into one, they're still only going to remember half of the information. So you're absolutely right. A brain can only absorb so much information at a time. And when you when you can make that and you can counteract that with like writing, it's going to help it absorb into your brain much quicker. And hearing you say 50% absorption rate there, it makes sense, because it's one of the things that I tell people often. All of my trainings, I pass out notepads, I pass out this, I pass out that. So I'm like, take some of the important things that you hear, some of the things that I say that, and then write it down. If you need me to kind of email you something, synopsis going back on that, send me an email, and then boom, I can kind of go into it a little bit more. But as I'm going through, if something I say sparks a little fire in your brain, then write it down, because that's going to help you remember it so much more.
Absolutely. And I'm reminded of the an experience I had in San Diego years ago. I was helping an advertising company open up an office in San Diego. They already existed in Denver, and I had a shared office space when I was doing this, right? And I had run into a couple of guys who were doing business coaching. And I saw one day that they had the conference room packed full of people, and for like 2 days, they're just going over all this information. Well, I caught them outside after the event, and I said, "Hey guys, it looks like you had a business coaching event." And they're like, "Yeah, room was packed. Those guys paid $5,000 a piece. It was like 11 people, so it's like you do the math, right?" It's like, "Well, it's pretty lucrative 2 days, right?" And I was like, "Wow, man, you must have given them a lot of information." And they're like, "Yeah, I saw them writing all that stuff down." They're like, yeah. And I asked them, so did you give them like a pamphlet of all your information when they left, so they can take it with them, or you have access to a website where they can access everything you taught them? Like, no, they just wrote it all down. And I look at them. Now, I'll give them grace and say they probably didn't know what I know about retention of data. But just the fact that they charged $5,000 per person and didn't give them any information afterwards, they got robbed. Those people were ripped off, right? And that's something that we need to understand. And I'm not trying to pick, obviously, I didn't say anybody's name. I'm not trying to pick on anybody. But if we're going to truly try to help people, knowing that information, knowing how much information people do retain and how much people do not retain is crucial to our genuine concern for their success. I want to hear Andrew speak on that.
All right, so let's see. We're looking at general success, or what it does. Let's see.
Andrew, let me pose the question this way. How would you, knowing how much people retain information, how would you move forward, considering that you and Walter are both now stepping into roles where you guys are becoming the mentors? So knowing that, moving forward as a mentor, how would you use that information, knowing how much people retain?
All right. So in my situation, I like to challenge people to be able to put their hands on. Now, I am a kinesthetic learner, so if I see it done once, I can replicate it. But if I do it myself, oh my gosh, it clicks. And so honestly, I would line up 5 people. How many students do we have today? All right, I'm going to poke a hole inside a drywall. Then I'm going to punch through it. I'm going to kick a big old hole. And then we'll go through and everybody does the same thing. And I can show drywall repair. It's so different to be able to watch somebody do it, explain it, but then you're like, okay, no, I'm going to go ahead and put the mesh on. I'm going to put this through. I'm going to smooth it out. You're going to look at your own work and you're going to be able to replicate it. Now, having hands-on and having a mentor and even having somebody giving you other perspective or another opinion. Hey, how do you think you did? All right, I think you did pretty darn good. Carry on. You need a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Let's do some fine tweaking, and then let's set it from there. Take everything with patience, but at the same time, you want to teach them something new. If you're going to teach something where they're going to retain a skill, then simply open the door, invite them in, and the first time, give them a nice walkthrough. It's the best way to be able to
right?
Repetition. Oh my goodness. Feels like making tips.
Repetition. You remember what I say? If something was difficult the first time, imagine how easy it'd be the 10th time. It doesn't take much of practice to really get something down. Can you speak on that? Like, Walter, what do you want to say to our young audience when it comes to going from not being good at something to being good at something? What advice would you give? Oh, I think I need to take you off of mute.
I got it. Yeah, I got it. If we were all good at something right off the bat, then nobody would have the need to improve, right? You have to pick something that you are passionate about and work at it every day. One of my agents asked me recently, I train mainly in the Medicare field. I train agents how to sell Medicare plans compliantly, efficiently, and ethically. And one of them asked me recently, he said, what can I do to be better tomorrow? He's like, what can I do to be better next week? I said, be 1% better each and every day. Don't underestimate where you can be 5 years from now if you continue to work, if you continue to strive. Yesterday, Ray and I, we were having a conversation, and Ray asked me, he started, and hopefully I'm not touching base on something that you're going to talk about later on, but he asked me a question. He said about goals. He said, we got into a conversation, the three of us, we were talking about goals. And I said, setting goals sets limitations. If you set a goal for yourself, then you are setting a limit. Most people, once they reach that goal, one of the questions, I've always had it asked me by every sales manager, coworkers, everybody's always asked me, what is your goal? What's your goal for the day? What's your goal for the week? What's your goal for the month? Let's set that goal. Setting goals, in my mind, sets limitations, because if you can reach 5, you can reach 6.
Yeah, right? When I was in sales, when I was working with somebody, my goal was to stay on the phone to the end of the day.
Exactly.
It's like what you were saying. If you set that limitation on the goal, like you were saying, it's like if someone says, "Hey, my goal is to hit 10 sales today." Well, when you hit 10 sales, you might stop trying, and therefore you limited your actual potential. So what should your goal be? Just keep working, just keep at it, and see where your real potential is. Right? I love that point that you make. Now, guys, I'm so grateful for you guys. We have made it past the 1 hour of us sharing our information, and now we're going to go into the Q&A. This is my favorite part of every webinar I've ever done, or any seminar. Anytime I've ever done a talk in front of people, I always found that doing a Q&A with the audience is the best way to customize to the audience. So we're going to go ahead and open up questions to the audience and see what they have. I recall there was a question earlier that I want to touch on, and we're going to start with, I'm going to ask both Andrew and Walt to answer this, but I'm going to start with Andrew. Andrew, the question is where are you going? How are you getting there? Right. So we're going to talk a little bit about road mapping. So tell us a little bit about your experience with how you got to, I want to be more specific, how you got to where you are today, where you have enough freedom with time and finances that you get to invest in other potential business opportunities.
Okay. Well, it kind of feels like I need to start off with a formula. The formula that I was given was 500 flyers a week. That means Monday through Friday, you can either get them all done first thing Monday morning, and then make sure that you are filling up your schedule. Google Calendar was my go-to. I started learning all the tools from Google Drive for being able to store all of my flyers and whether I wanted to update them or make sure that they're perfect printouts. That was always the beginning. And then making sure that I stayed consistent. Every single week I get out the flyers, and then basically business is consistent and work always came. After I was spoiled on how many flyers that I had out, those flyers would slowly, another call. Hey, weeks go by. Hey, another call. They would always trickle in until I was having flyer callbacks that they had picked it up 4 months back from a different neighborhood I hadn't thought about in a long time. And hey, I need a handyman. And then just making sure that I am always on time, I'm prepared for the job. I have all the tools that I need for that day. And making sure that I'm treating all of my customers like they're a family member or a neighbor. You know, there's no extra effort you have to put in just to be nice. And, always be pleasant and professional. If they're upset, give them a moment to be upset and then help them with their issue. You're there to help. And I find success in all of these simple roadmaps that kind of bring it on home to you enjoying and choosing your schedule and your freedom. Stay organized and practice, practice, practice. 15 minutes early is on time is late. Stick to the basics. You'll see success. Success.
Hey, Walt, let's get a response from you. What's that roadmap look like for you?
So I have been through a lot of mental struggles in my life, especially over the past several years. I got pretty low. And over the past year or so, I've really taken an extra step to get myself where I need to be. I swear, if y'all tell him that I said this, but my brother told me, hey, you need to get in the gym, right? You need to get in the gym. You need to get working out. It's going to help you. I'm like, no. How is going through all this pain? How is going through all of this going to help me? No, I'm going to feel worse. And so once I started getting into it for a couple of weeks, I really started to realize what he was talking about. And a little bit of backstory about how I came involved into this project today. I was talking, Ray had called me and said, brother, he said, I appreciate seeing where you were compared to where you are. He said, we don't speak very much. He said, but when we do, I can kind of gauge, because Ray is very good at kind of gauging how somebody is doing emotionally simply by speaking to them. He doesn't even have to be physically looking at them. He can kind of, he's that kind of guy. And he said, I appreciate seeing where you were compared to where you are. So I want you to be involved in this. Now, I don't know where I'm going to be tomorrow, but I know that it's going to be better than where I was. I know that it's going to each and every single day, if I strive to add something to my life to benefit it, then I'm going to be better than I was. And I'm making this declaration right now that I'm going to be a part of something like this more often. Andrew, I challenge you, brother. You and I think that we really need to work together. I think that you and I could come up with some very powerful projects together. So I challenge you, brother. We're going to stay in touch, and we're definitely going to continue after this. So I don't know where it's going to be, but I have a strong feeling that it's going to be with Andrew.
Hey, I'm here. Happy to help, bud.
Happy to help, bud.
Well, chime in on that one. I saw that coming. I said, I'm ready. I feel like I've really kind of, I feel like I've done it, and I feel confident, and I'm ready to teach it. I'm ready to pass it on. As men, once we say, "Hey, oh my gosh, I'm happy," and then we feel compelled to share. Genuinely, we want everyone to be happy together. There's a saying, it's lonely at the top, right? And so it's really important that we make sure that we're helping our fellow human beings rise up.
So it looks like Ray may be having some technical issues. So what we'll do is we'll kind of just continue on until he gets back. So one of the things that I feel is lacking in today's modern mindset is that if we don't need to improve, we've been given this impression.
Sorry, guys. All right. That was fun. My internet skipped out for a second. All right, so I won't say any names here, but there was somebody in my past. It was a dear friend of mine, and I know we're having some audio issues, guys. Thanks for bearing with us. Nothing's ever perfect, right? But thanks for bearing with us. There was a dear friend of mine in the past that once seemed to had expressed that they were not very failures. And I said to this friend, if you are resentful towards my successes, then you can never really benefit from what I have to offer you. And that person was very wise, by having that conversation with me and being upfront about saying, hey, like, I'm just really feeling very small right now. I'm feeling very vulnerable. And it allowed me to remind that person, like, but if you open yourself up, if you let go of that feeling small and you say, open thing, I want to learn, then you too can follow into that, and you can benefit from that, what the person has to offer. And that person did benefit from it. Do you guys have any experiences like that? I want to ask Andrew.
Sure. Let's see. All right. Sorry, one more time. What was your question?
I know I'm having audio issues. Some of the comments, people they're saying, "Hey, audio issues," but you know what? for bearing with us, guys. So Andrew, a story about a friend from the past that had issues with hearing about my successful stories. I was traveling around the world, and I confronted them. Hey, sounds like you're struggling. And said, hearing about your successes reminds me of my failures. I'm struggling with that. And I said to that person that if they can let go of the resentment, then they can actually benefit from what I have to offer. And they did let go, and they did benefit from what I had to offer. Do you have experiences like that? Have you run your life kind of resenting your success because it reminds them of their failure?
Those I can think of a couple people. I don't know, when it comes to friends and family, the people that I've met along the way. It's been a hell of a climb, but every single time that I challenged myself to do something I didn't completely know that I was capable of, it was kind of nice being able to be met with the challenge and then just walk the path. Whether it was my brother's kind of wondering, hey, what the heck are you doing there? I'm not sure if you're going to be able to do that, or certain families or friends that were just like, okay, I guess you did that, but okay, you're having success, that's great, but the rest of the world is still working, and they're still doing their regular jobs. And I don't really think of it as resentment, because they just don't understand this path that I've made. I can explain it 100 times over, but it just sounds like, they don't see the stability in it until you're walking a confident path. And it's kind of like my old mindset, where 40 hours a week, what do you think you're doing? Entrepreneurship, where's that going to go? I don't know. It kind of sounds like you don't have a job. Is this a part-time gig? You're just kind of doing that as a side job until you either go back to college or you find a nice office job, climb the corporate ladder, and then make, everybody in your family and friends feel like you're set. Do you have a pension? Is your 401k set? Have you been funding things? It's all the business vernacular of a regular person of society, and that's what we've been built into. And so all we do is show an example of how we live our lives. How you do your job, how you treat your wife, how you treat your kids. I'm not a perfect dad, but dang nabbit, I try really, really hard. My heart's in it, and I love my daughter. I love my wife, and I try and open that space to try and be a good example.
It comes down to intention. It's the intentions. If your intentions are there, that's really all that matters. Everything else will shine through. Guys, listen, this has been really incredible. I'm proud and honored to have you with. I think we're going to go ahead and go into our statements. Okay, I'm going to ask Walter to start with a closing statement. Advice with our Walter, what would you say?
I think it's coming through a little choppy on our end, Ray.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what your question was, but if I had one thing to say to those that are listening, is I would say do one thing every single day that benefits you down the road. Now, that could mean learning a practical trade, building AI, like your knowledge with the AI or technology skills, growing a side business, exercising, learning to manage your anger, anxiety, any of that. Do something every single day that benefits you down the road. You have 24 hours in a day. You do not need to spend all 24 hours building the future, but some part of your day should belong to the person that you're trying to become. And it's never too late to make those decisions. Don't leave tonight feeling inspired and call that progress. You have to do something with that inspiration. You have to do something with that knowledge in order to progress yourself. Andrew?
There you go. If we're going to be strong men, we're going to be trying to at least offer what we found. And here, can I hear on your side? Back.
Starting to get a little choppy there, Andrew. You've been good the whole conversation, but you're starting to get a little choppy right now. Yeah.
Sure. Can you hear your mic as I'm here?
Yeah, you're getting, it's really choppy, brother.
Okay. Basically, if we're going to be leaders, we at least need to be able to give an example of what being a gentle speaker is. We need to think of our customer service skills. We need to think of everybody as a neighbor, a family member. We want to be able to care for a good result. Or whether it's us professionals, we really need to be able to put our heart in it, have a gentle soul and spirit, but we also need to make sure that, that we walk in truth. And from there, we need to be able to show example of what this life should be lived as, best as we can from our own perception. Here we go.
Well, thanks hanging in there with me, guys. Sorry, I of course, right at the end, my signal fails. But it sounds like you guys were able to get your final word in. I get a thumbs up from you guys. You got your final word in? Okay, Andrew, you got your final word in? All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for participating in this, being a wonderful audience. Checking out a lot of your comments here. You guys, have a lot of really good points to add to us. Rita and Jim, you guys, love you guys chiming in with that. And yes, a lot of these things are biblical concepts. We're definitely, I can't speak for everybody, but definitely coming from a Christian background, or even it doesn't matter what background you come from. I think good principles are good principles. And I want to give a special shout out to my dear friend, Andrew Heffley, for joining me in his very first keynote speaking experience here in the webinar. I also want to send another special shout out to Walt Dodd for joining us. Walt Dodd is about to launch his own business. I want to give him a platform to talk about that real quick. And because that's the thing I think him and Andrew are going to be talking about. So let's hear from Walt real quick on that.
So I've always had a way of reaching people. Ever since I was growing up, I grew up, I was actually the responsive reader for my church. So I've always had that ability to speak to people, to reach out to people. So I've always made a great trainer and a sales agent. And it comes to a point to when I feel like I want to be able to share the information that I've developed over my years. And so that's why I developed Elevated Mind, was so that way I can share some of the information that I have developed about sales, certain types of departments. Yes, I do a lot on Medicare, insurance, things of that nature. But sales, training, insurance, those are kind of my areas of forte. And when I reached out to, when Andrew reached out to, or when Ray reached out to me, and he was speaking about Andrew. He was saying, yeah, he said, he said, I've got this guy, Andrew. He said he really wants to get into public speaking and things of that nature. And that's why I was like, yeah, I would love to be a part of this project, of this webinar, to kind of help not just get get the name of the Elevated Mind out there a little bit, but to help those that need the guidance and confidence and things of that nature.
Thank you for that. I need to remind myself. Go ahead. One of our audience members, Carly, just chimed in and says, also being an entrepreneur isn't easy. People shouldn't get that illusion. And before we go, I definitely want, it's a really good point. But you know what? Nothing is easy. Is being an employee easy? No. Is working, too hard for too little easy? No. And I always tell people, if you're in a job and you're not getting enough out of it, imagine if you put the same effort, the same 40 hours a week into your actual business, you would be a lot better off. Andrew, you want to say something about that?
Well, let's just say I was my own worst enemy for months and months on end. I really just kept hammering down, and I started off with a mentor, so I had to sooner or later kind of wean myself off of, all right, I don't know what to do here. I took pictures. I'm going to send them over to Ray. He calls me back. He tells me like 3 things on the step through, and I'm like, all right, I already knew that. I just needed to question a lot of the time so that I could hear the confidence in his voice while he's walking through what I already know, and allowing me to just once again, you have permission to go ahead and do that. Yeah, you're going to do that, right? Yeah, I'm going to do that. All right, thanks, dude. That's all I needed. Click. Sometimes I just needed to be able to hear the words. I needed to step through it while, I've got somebody right alongside me assuring me that I could head through and, change out that light switch, change out that toilet, do that drywall in that weird area. It's like I grew up climbing trees for a living, for fun. And then here I am crawling through rafters, taking care of security cameras. You got to learn everything once, and then you get practice all the way through.
As Eric said, pimping ain't easy. That was the last comment we just got on here. And
characters.
Guys, hey, again, thank you so much. Please keep us posted on where you guys are going with your public speaking business. I will support it. Again, thank you so much for being part of this philanthropical webinar 2026 with Ray Chubb, Andrew Heffley, and Walt Dodd. Thank you, guys. We're out. Peace.